Hello, my name is Patrick Maniak, and I'm here to demonstrate the beginning word reading and spelling activities, building words, and stretch to spell. Okay, what we know about young children taking that first step into reading or decoding words, or conversely, spelling basic words, is that they need to have phonemic awareness. They need to be able to hear, segment, and blend the individual sounds that make up words. They need, of course, to know the sounds that the letters that they're using represent or make. And they also need, in addition to those prerequisite skills, they need support in actually blending the letter sounds together to read a word, or in hearing, segmenting those sounds and being able to write letters to represent them. Okay, so these two activities are right at that beginning step of taking that prerequisite skill of phonemic awareness and that basic beginning letter sound knowledge and actually putting them together to read and to spell words. Okay, so let's look at the activity building words. Okay, building words is going to work with a small set of letters. They should be letters that students have already studied and have knowledge of the letter sounds. It's going to go very slowly, very meticulously. It helps kids to see the letters, to blend the sounds in the letters to read the word, and most importantly, to read all the way through words, to recognize that they need to get to the final sound in terms of blending a word, and not just look at the first sound or the first two letters and guess, because that is a real temptation. It's a real habit for struggling readers and students with dyslexia. It is hard work to blend all the way through the word. And so they have that tendency to just look at first sounds and guess. Building words really targets reading all the way through the word, because it shows them that as you change the last letter in a word, it truly becomes a very different word. And if you're not reading through that last letter or through the medial vowel, you're going to miss it. All right, so it works like this. We take this little word pocket. Now I'm using a white word pocket. Typically we would have this in like a colored construction paper. And this kind of letter that fits well into the word pocket. Okay, we have a little asterisk or a little star right at the beginning of the word pocket to reinforce where these words are going to begin as students build the words. So it always gives them a target. They always know that left side. Now I have mine turned to face the students as a model. Students would each have their own word pocket and set of letters. In the beginning though, I will simply demonstrate and say, okay students, it's time to build some words. The first word I'm going to make is the word pet. Notice the letters that I get out, pet. I need to hear the sounds in the words, and I need to get those letters out there in the right places, pet. All right, I think I have it. Let's go ahead and see. So I've got the word pet. What word is it? Ask them to read it with me. And I might start with our beginning point. Pet. Great. Now, if I'm going to go from the word pet to the word pot, I need to change just one letter, and I'm going to make a new word. Pot. I do not hear that in the middle. Instead, I hear the ah. What letter makes that sound? Right, the O. So I'm going to get the O in now instead of the E. Put that into my word pocket. Great, now I have it, and I have the word pot. Read it with me. Pot. Great. So that was just a demonstration. Now I'm going to call students. I'm going to go ahead and take my words out, and I'll ask them to build the words with me. This is a fairly directive process. I've got an intentional list of words that I'm going to have students build that make sense, that takes them through systematically, typically changing the medial vowel and the last consonant so that it forces them to read all the way through the word. If I were just to change the initial consonant, and you'll see this a lot of time in classrooms, but it's not nearly as strong, because if I go through, say, a set of rhyming words like the traditional hat, cat, sat, and the students are just changing the initial consonant, they can fall into just reading the rhyme by memory and not really have to read all the way through the word to get to that final consonant. They know, in essence, because they are not changing the second two letters, that it's going to be at each time. And that can actually reinforce that initial sound and guess habit that struggling readers will fall into. So you'll see most of my changes here come in the vowel and at the end of the word. So I'll say, okay, students, now you do it with me. Let's spell the word pet, and we're going to read it together. So what do we need? Think about it, and I'll let them go ahead and think about it as I get my letters out. Pet. Listen for the sounds you hear and the letters that you know that represent those sounds. And I'll give them a second, just as I'm doing it up here in a model. Either, typically this I would be working up on a pocket chart where they can see my model. But at this point, we want them to be able to hear and get their letters out in order. Okay, once I see that everyone's made the word pet, I go, great. Let's carefully blend these letters to read our word. What do we have here? Pet. Good, read it again. Pet. Now you guys on your own, they're going to read pet. Great. All right, students, let's change the word pet to the word pat. Like I pat the dog. What do we need to change? How do you hear it differing from our first word pet? Pat. And so they should be hearing that they need something new in the middle there. So they take out the E. Again, I can reach in if I'm working, say, with a smaller group of 4 or 5 students. I can observe, or even in a single student in a tutoring situation, one-on-one, I can be more directive and say, yeah, pat. The letter we have to change is the middle letter, so take your E out. What do we hear in the middle of pat? Yeah, the short A sound, that ah. Good. And so once everybody has it, we go back to reading it carefully. What's our word here? Pat. Go ahead and read it again. Pat. You guys read it? Pat. Super. I might say, turn and read it to your partner. So individually, they'll read pat. Great job. All right. Now, let's turn pat, this is going to be a tricky one, into past. Past. We have a new sound in there. It actually, we don't need to take anything out. We need to add something. Pass. And that's a challenging phonemic segmenting task to hear that phoneme for the s that's in the middle of the word. So I might have to, again, be a little more directive. What we're going to need to do is fit something in between the a and t of pat. Pass. What letter makes that sound? Great, the S. And again, they should be familiar with the letter sounds of these letters. Great, so let's slip it in. Super. What word did we build? Let's read it together. Past. What word? Past. Great. You guys read it to your partner, one then the other, and so the student turns to their shoulder partner and reads past. Their partner reads to them, past. Great. And we might go on. Let's turn past into pet. Or, I'm sorry, into pest. Pest. Yep. We need to change our vowel, don't we? What letter do you hear? Yeah, it's the short E, so let's get that in there. All right, let's read it together. Pest. Super job. Okay, and we could keep on going. We could go from pest back to pet. We could go ahead, and there's nothing wrong with changing this up and saying, let's change pet into set. And so we can change the initial consonant, and they read it again as set. Now we might change set into sat. Again, they're learning that each individual letter is critically important and that they need to blend each of those letters together. They can't just begin with a first S and guess, because guess what? That could give you set or sat, or in this case, let's change from sat into sap, the sticky stuff that's inside trees. So what do we need to change for sap? That's right, we take the T out, put our P in, go ahead and let's read it together. Sap, what word? Sap. Great job. All right, so that's our building word activity. It goes just like that. Now, very quickly, I'm going to add another activity that really works at the same level, beginning word reading, and in this case, spelling. Early on in the reading process, the idea of decoding words and spelling words are very reciprocal. Working on spelling words, hearing those sounds, representing them with letters, and then maybe reading what you wrote is going to really strengthen kids beginning decoding as well. This is a super easy activity. It's a very strong one in terms of continuing to support students' phonemic awareness development, also reinforcing their letter sound knowledge and applying those prerequisite skills to actually spelling and reading words. So let's just do one. I'll say, okay, kids, we're gonna stretch to spell today. Let's spell the word mat, like we have a mat on the floor. Everybody, put your hand to your mouth and let's imagine you have some gum in there. Grab your gum and stretch out the word mat like you're stretching out bubble gum. Let's say it real slow and stretch it. Mat. Good, again. Mat. Super. Now, this time, I want you to stop right at the beginning of the stretch. So we just hear the first sound in mat. Again. Great. Now, what letter do we know that makes that sound? Someone says, oh, that's the M, Mr. Mania. I say, great. Go ahead and write it. Let's say they have whiteboards or a half sheet of paper like this. I'll do it as well. Mine is maybe up on a pocket chart where they can see it as a model. Super. All right, pencils down. Let's go back to our stretch. Now we're going to stop in the middle of stretching the word mat. And we need to hear that sound in the middle. Ma. Again, ma, ah. Great. What letter do we know that makes that ah sound? And someone will say, well, that's the short A. Super. And everybody write it, and I'll do it on my model. There's the ah. All right, let's get to the end of the stretch. Mat. All right, what letter do you hear? Mat. What do you hear? The T. Oh, that's the T. Good, go ahead and write it. And students are going to put that in. I'll do it on my model. Great job. We've spelled a word. Let's go ahead and read the word we spelled. Now we can go back and really that reciprocal process of spelling to read. Great, what word did we write? Mat. Read it again. Mat. Super. And I might go on. This is a very detailed process, hearing the individual phonemes, matching the letters that we know represent those phonemes, working. We might lean in and work with a kid on letter formation as they're simply writing these letters. And so maybe we write just 3 or 4 words, mat and man, hat, and so forth. we end up with a list on our sheet. We can go back then and read each of the words that we've spelled. And that is Stretch to Spell. It's continuing to build students' phonemic awareness, that ability to hear and process the individual sounds in words. It's reinforcing what they know about letter-sound relationships when we ask, okay, what letter do we know that makes that sound? And it's putting it all together to actually write and then to read what we've written in terms of basic single-syllable words.